Okay, 2 problems from quiz 2 to get ready for the test. So solve by the square root method. What's the first thing that we have to do to solve by the square root method? Square root. And so the square root of 2x plus 3 squared, 2x plus 3, the sign plus or minus. I can't do a thing with 6, so it's just square root of 6. Good. The next step, we want to solve for x, so we just subtract 3. Which sign do we write first? The fancy sign or the simple sign? The simple. Basically, there would be no difference, but it makes thinking about this a whole bunch easier if you leave the fancy sign second. And then divide everything by 2. So that's your answer. All you have to do is just write it down. Negative 3 plus or minus the square root of 6 over 2. Put a box around it so that I know that that's the answer. So that's basically number 7, square root method. And you can go and look at the video and then see the solution. No problem. It's just a warm-up. This one is the tough one. Solve this by complete the square. So before we even start, the first thing that you notice is that this term, it has to be, and it has to be just x squared. Nothing else, just x squared. So what do we have to get rid of? The 3. Divide everything by 3. So when we do that, we're going to get x squared. And you write your 4/3 like this, a fraction, horizontal bar, then the x, minus 14/3 is equal to 0. And you work in fraction. Decimal won't cut it. It won't let you see everything that you need. So the next step would be to do what? Move the constant. Instead of leaving 2 blanks, I'm going to try this instead, because I see blanks don't help out really good. Instead of leaving 2 blanks, just leaving 2 spaces. I think that would make it a lot easier. And leaving 2 spaces, I forgot what I was adding. Move the 14/3. And then instead of adding 2 blanks, I figured just leaving spaces. Because blanks make it harder because you're kind of like trying to write over them in your papers, and I've noticed that. So maybe if you just leave 2 spaces instead of the blanks. So the first thing is, how do you fill in the first space? And the way that you write that is of is times multiplication. This means of. So half of means you multiply straight across. If you multiply straight across, this is what it means, 1/2 of 4/3. And you get 4 over 6, but you have to reduce to 2 over 3. You have to reduce. Keeps your number small. And then what do you do second? Square. I know it seems like it's a whole bunch of writing to do it like this. I don't expect you to do all of this, but what I expect you to do, maybe I've seen something where you do this part. The things that I would expect that would be really helpful for you to see is you don't need to write first, but I would expect you to write this, that you can see that multiplying 1/2 times 4/3 is equal to 4/6, and then simplify to 2/3, put the box. At minimum, that's what you should do. And then if you just put a box and then you just square it in the same thing, what would really be good for you is to write it again the second time so you don't have problem with the signs. You practice multiplying it straight across, so your answer here. And you put that in a box. That would be another thing that would really be helpful, because I see so many students not doing this, but then not knowing which numbers go where. So I'm trying to clean up the algorithm, the method. That's more important to solve this than getting the answer, because if the method isn't right, there's no way. So now, I have what I need to put into this space. I have what I need to put into this space. So what number goes into that space? So I put 4, 9 on both. So maybe I like the idea of blanks, but maybe put the blanks a little lower so it doesn't interfere with what number you're going to put in there. Because that's what I was noticing. Now, the second part that I notice a lot of students having a problem with is what to do after this. And so I'm going to write x, a lower blank, squared equals. The problem is students don't know what to do next. I see that a lot. So what goes into this blank here? The 2 over 3. That's what goes in that blank. And so if you just do it this way, you go from this step to this step. Those two steps are equal. We've already seen that they're equal, but just to learn how to do it, that's how you do it. Now for this part over here, I want to add 14 over 3 plus 4 over 9. Can I add them as they are? No, because they don't have the same common denominator. So when you're choosing your common denominator, at least you have to choose the bigger number. So what would be the common denominator of 3 and 9? 9, which is the bigger number. In these problems, more than likely, it's always going to be the bigger number. Just a heads up. I'm kind of like seeing that. So this 4 over 9 over here, whoops. This 4 over 9, that's already, it has the denominator of 9. So I don't need to change that. So I can think of it as multiplying times 1. I don't even need to do that, just write a 4. But this 3, to make it look like this 9, I need to multiply it by 3. If I multiply the bottom, I need to multiply the top. 14 times 3, 42. So now that I put it over 1, and then find the common denominator. Okay? Now here, my common denominator is 9. I put it over 1 denominator, so 42 plus 4, 46. And then you have your x plus 2, 3 squared. So we get to this part. So next step, square root. So you get your x plus 2, 3 equals the sign, plus or minus. The way that I'm going to write this is just so that you can see. This is the square root of the fraction. One way that you can think about it is that it's the square root of the top over the square root of the bottom. They show the same thing. The square root of the fraction, 46 over 9, is the square root of the top, 46, over the square root of the bottom, 9. How does that help? Well, I can't do a thing with 46, but on the bottom, what's the square root of 9? 3. That helps. So, 46, there is no perfect square inside. I was trying to think of taking half of that as 23. Half of 23, not possible. To see if 4 would go into it, it doesn't. So, next step would be to do what? We're solving for x. We're solving for x. We got to get rid of minus 2 over 3. Minus 2 over 3. So these are gone. Which one do we write first, the fancy sign or the simple sign? Always the simple. It makes the answer easier, simpler. We're almost finished. One last step is to recognize that these two have the same denominator. And so just write the answer over one denominator and what goes written on the top. Plus or minus square root of 46. It's going to. If you work it out right, it will have the same denominator. These problems will. Okay? So that's basically working these problems.